This is, of course, one of my favorite places in the world, and I'm thrilled to have one of my favorite people in the world coming to talk to us today. My dear friend of 30 years, I have to tell you how we met. We met in 1984 at a horticultural lunch. I was sitting next to him, and he looked down at my hands, and he said, "You must be a gardener. What do you do?" So I took him to see the conservatory garden the very second year that had its restoration, and I have loved Robert ever since. We found we shared a passion for plants, and in particular for hydrangeas. Robert has been a real force in French and European horticulture, being one of the first people who introduced French gardeners to ornamental shrubs and perennials. He also is one of the founders of Courson, which is the great biennial equivalent, French equivalent of Chelsea, but of course I think it's better than Chelsea, especially since you can go and buy things and take them away with you right away, and you see these people staggering along, carrying a 6-foot tree, and they have traffic jams in the middle of nowhere for Courson, and Robert was one of the people who started it on a card table with some plants, right, Robert? Every year that I can, I visit his family's fabulous, beautiful, spectacular house and garden in Normandy called Le Bois des Moutiers, and we will see pictures of it, I know, today. It's an amazing garden and landscape full of hydrangeas, and one of the best gardens in France. So if you haven't been there, it's in Varangeville, and I'm sure that there is lots of information about it on the website and also in his book. So I go with great excitement to visit Le Bois des Moutiers, but also Shamrock, his organization, his collection, the biggest collection of hydrangeas in the world. And so I know you're going to have a great treat ahead of you hearing from Robert.
Thank you, Lyndon. It's just great to be introduced by you because, you know, friends, it's great, friends of friends, and it seems that you're all my friends today, so it helps me a lot. And I'm sure you will apologize if I'm not always accurate or precise. Anyhow, I would like to thank the New York Botanical Garden staff for their very kind help in providing me with a plane. That was nice, and etc., and especially Barbara, who helped me a lot. And then I also want to thank the Norton Books, the publishing company in New York, who published my book, Envisioning the Garden that you've seen at the entrance. I had written another book before called Rebirth of the Park, because the Parc des Moutiers, of which Lina just talked, said had been abandoned during the war between 1940 and 1955. That is, my grandfather, who had created that place during 40 years, had 5 minutes to leave because the Germans were coming in. So he never saw it again. He died in 46, but he wasn't at all sad about it because he knew he had done a beautiful job. Well, 15 years after, you imagine, there were trees in the paths, and there were brambles 6 meters high. And it's my father who started to clean the place after the mines had been removed naturally, because the wood coast was mine. And my mother came in, and my father died in 64. My mother came in 73, and I moved with my wife and 2 children and a half, including my daughter Alice, who is here today. She lives in Brooklyn. And we started opening the park to the public and started cleaning the place. So that story, including the story of Courson and this fabulous time we've had between the 80s and the 90s with opening of a lot of new gardens and nurseries opening, and that was really fantastic. It had to be written somehow, so I wrote that book called Renaissance d'un parc, or Rebirth of the Park. It's also in English, but now, unfortunately, it's out of print. Maybe you can find it as a collect. Anyhow, since we are very busy with this rebirth of the park, that where I worked 20 years there. Actually, all I know about gardens, I think I've learned that in that garden, because it's a very, very special. It's an arts and craft garden. Arts and crafts garden, maybe you don't know what it is. It's just not just Lodgen's bench, you know, it's more than that. Actually, you have colors. Colors are medieval colors only. That is the colors that you find in stained glass windows in churches, Gothic churches. You have also the wild flowers that has to be kept very carefully. And you have a sense of embroideries, you see, small foliage, never big leaves. So, I mean, an arts and crafts park is something very special, and I don't know any other than this one. So I learned a lot in that place. And then we moved on. I had a nursery there for 12 years. And we were introducing in France a lot of plants that didn't exist, because we had made a survey of every plant growing in French botanical gardens, either private or public. It was a huge task done by the Society of French Botanical Garden with Franklin Picard and Jean-Pierre de Molly. It was an enormous task, and there was no computer at the time, where you had to make the survey one by one. So we knew exactly what was not in France. So I had a very old lorry, and I was going around in Holland and England and bringing plants that I knew were not in France, and then going to Courson, and actually immediately everybody was scrambling and trying to get these plants, because we were new. You have collections of Daphnes, collections of camellias, collections of viburnums, collections. It was fantastic. So my second wife came in the picture, and she fell in love with hydrangeas. So she started to collect them, and she went 5 times in Japan and wrote 5 books. So the latest book is this one, Hydrangea, with 800 pictures. It's in French, English, and German, the same book. And now it is translated, if you want, in Japanese. And it's a bestseller in Japan. So this you can get on Amazon, okay? By Corinne Mallet, Hydrangea, it's 2008. So that was quite interesting job, because there are so many species that we didn't know and still are coming in. People like Ozzy Johnson just came back from China and brought a few species more. And hydrangeas just at the beginning, because you know, they haven't started to cross these species yet. For roses in the 19th century, they started to cross with rugosa and all that, and now you have millions of roses. But imagine if we start crossing species of hydrangeas, I mean, it's going to be the plant of the century. Now, the book Envisioning the Garden is not a book on European gardens. It's a book is the result of 20 years of observation looking at gardens to answer the main question for me, which is, why is this beautiful? Why do I feel that this is beautiful? What happens in me when suddenly I see something beautiful in a garden? What happens in my brain when I see something? So actually, there was a book by Richard Gregory, an American book called Eye and Brain, that really gave me a few hints of what was going on. And then I started taking pictures to explain all the different ideas you can have to make your garden look bigger than it is. Well, in some cities, with the price of a square meter, I mean, it helps. you can really make your garden look much bigger. You can also make it look more small if you want, because it works both ways. Now, there are so many different ideas and ways to do it. You have lines, you have, we are going to talk of lines, because the book has so many different ideas in it that it would take a few days to go through all of them. I'm not joking, it's true. So I advise you just to buy the book if you want to know them. Okay. Now, there's one thing that is actually becomes more than a conviction, but rather certitude, that the way we react to beauty and to gardens is physiologic. And recent research in the functioning of the brain proves this point abundantly. Before we go looking at some of these pictures that tell you more, this picture was taken in the Parc des Moutiers. It's a Magnolia cobus. It's a wonderful plant. You have a blue cedar here. That's a bit too strong. Okay, I'll get used to machine. Okay, now we start with the idea of lines. The very important lines. If you start a garden, that you must spend a lot of time thinking about what line you are going to draw. Because if you make it wrong at the beginning, that's going to be very difficult to do. Now we have Steve Morrell here, who was in charge of the Japanese garden in Long Island, the Hume family, and he knows, he was specialist of Zen garden. He knows certainly what is a line, how important it's not to make a mistake when you start your garden. And if you go now this afternoon in your garden and you see a bad line, well, that's going to be tough and maybe expensive. But it's highly important, because if you close the vista, if a line is wrong, then you go to the doctor and I say, well, I don't feel well, I'm sorry, there's something wrong with me. Well, it's just because you start with a wrong line. Do not put yourself in jail. I mean, it's stupid. All right. Now you are here in a beautiful view in Varangeville. You're on the coast, on the upper Normandy coast, facing England. If you go on your tiptoe, you're going to see England. And you have these cliffs, famous cliffs where that Claude Monet has painted over 100 times. Every museum in the world has a painting by Claude Monet of these cliffs. And it's just so calm and peaceful, horizontal line. I guess that's why we travel sometimes, because especially if we live in a city, we need this horizontality. On the other side of the village, you have the plain, beautiful plain, also with these wonderful lines, horizontal. I remember my mother always was tired and sick and tired of being in the Bois des Moutiers. It was too beautiful, and she said, take me away from this place. And we used to ride in this plain, and she was shouting, oh, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Well, this is a place I'm sure a lot of you know, Hestercombe. Russell Page said it's impossible to have a garden at the same time and a vista. You cannot have panorama and a garden at the same time. Well, I think this proves that it's not true. Naturally, you have to be Sir Edwin Lutyens to succeed in making panorama and a garden. Look at the quantity, incredible quantity. Trying to make this thing. Yeah, here it is. You see what the size of a pergola? I mean, it's enormous. Naturally beautiful. And in the front, you had blue lavandula. Well, they're not in flower now, but when you go in summer, it's beautiful because the blue color in the front makes you see better the panorama because you are not blinded by the light. The blue color makes you soften your eyes. Okay? So naturally, the perennials were Gertrude Jekyll with Bergenias and other plants. Estocamp, beautiful place. Got to go there. So a very simple little private garden. Well, it could have been just grass, you know, a meadow, no interest. But by making these lines, these horizontal lines, it makes a world difference. It's very softening also to the eyes. Now this is my sister Constance Cargère. She is very, very good. In Varangeville, she has a lovely garden that Lyndon has been visiting many times. Also, she used this pergola, you see. That's very useful to get these horizontal lines. Okay. Well, she paints also with flowers. She has a very good eye for color. She's a great friend of Mark Brown, an excellent landscape architect. Just got a prize for his Jurassic Park. We call him Jurassic Mark. So still Constance Garden with horizontal line, but this time it's but with brick way here that gives the horizontal line. Now you're naturally going to ask me, when do we come to the vertical lines? Well, here it is. You are going to have a few ideas on vertical. Well, pergolas naturally are very easy. This is Maurice Foster's garden near Seven Oaks. He has a fantastic collection of plants that he got himself, mostly all the Wilson plants he got back. And he used this pergola to have wisterias, collection of wisteria here. Very, very nice place. Maurice Foster. This is also Maurice Foster's garden. So that's interesting. You see, he starts with small plant, geranium, etc. And then the shrubs get taller and taller and taller and taller and taller. So in a very limited space, you can have in verticality, you can save a lot of room for plants. That also was done at Camped-out. Camped-out also, it's incredible. You don't know, you look from down to up and you see plants, different, like a tapestry. Beautiful. Now, you can also use plants that are vertical themselves. This is the famous Wisteria longissima alba. Japanese name is Shiro Noda. Shiro means white. Wonderful, very fragrant. That's at Les Moutiers. Naturally, if you've been in Italy, you would have water, but at that park there's no water at that altitude, so we use wisteria to give this sense of flowing water. Now, this is for Lyndon special. It's quercifolia. That is, you know, quercifolia, sometimes they are on the ground. They take a lot of space in the ground. And the flowers are so heavy, but sometimes they look down. So this idea is arrangé in the park Gaston Allard. It was planted on a wall. It's planted on the top of a wall, and it falls out down to the water. Isn't that clever? Now, this is also another way of using hydrangeas in a vertical way. I would have never thought of that. It's in Isola Bella. I mean, Isola Bella is beautiful in itself, but this idea of, there is a new curator called Gianfranco Giardino, is a wonderful man, wonderful, and we gave him over 100 of cuttings of best cultivars that we have in the collection. So Isola Madre will be look completely different in a few years, I can tell you. Now this is in Courson, in a small stand. You see, you can give this idea of verticality in a very small place. Now this is a garden, and it's land art. It's near Dieppe, it's called near Forges-les-Eaux, a garden of sculptures called Bois Guibert. Monsieur Depas is a sculptor, and he did a good job also to give this idea of verticality. In Les Moutiers, you have this round of views. I think my grandfather had not enough money to have a Greek temple, so he thought of planting yews, and so he has the columns. Now, also you can use naturally sculptures, and this is a fantastic sculpture by Aples Fenosa. He was Catalan from Catalogne. He was contemporary of Pablo Picasso. I think Picasso stole it, a few of his sculptures, small little things. It was after the war in Spain, the Spanish War. So now this sculpture, it's the fair weather chasing away the storm. I took that picture with my daughter Alice this summer. I wanted this to be seen here, how much sculpture can bring joy in a place like that. C'est à la Défense, near Paris. Another sculpture by Apelles Fenosa was a great friend of the family. She's a violinist, and you see with lilies and yuccas, and you have this sense of verticality also with flowers and sculpture. Now, lines, either horizontal or vertical, sometimes are a bit cutting edges, you know, and they're a bit harsh to the eye. So you can soften these angles with plants. Here you have a smoke tree, Cotinus cogria. The garden is Tintin Hall. Tintin Hall, it was Penelope Hobhouse at one time. It's a National Trust garden. I thought it was just great, this combination of stone and plants. In Varangely, le Bois des Moutiers, you have a pergola, but these arches, semi-arches, had to be put there because we had a terrible storm in '78, and they were serious. And here was a rose garden here, very old-fashioned. We didn't know if we were going to close this rose garden or to open it. So finally, we did these arches, which are both closed and open. There are 3 doors like that, and children run around. It's very nice. This is Mark Brown's garden, Persian garden, which is no more, unfortunately. He used the pavot, papaver, and various plants also to soften the angles. This is Les Moutiers again, and you imagine the quantity of plants you can have here to soften. Naturally, you would say, well, it's a pity to hide the beautiful architecture by lotions, by plants. So it's always a fight between the one who wants to see the architecture and having no plants at all, and the one who wants to have plants. So in the park, the lines sometimes are not horizontal or oblique. They are oblique, and these are mainly with this beautiful magnolia branches, Magnolia cobus, and that's a very easy plant for you to use. It grows quite fast. It's in full bloom in April, at Easter sometime, and it's wonderfully scented. And here you have sequoias, American redwoods, behind. That's in the Parc des Moutiers. Now, as I was asked to come and speak about gardens in New York, I mean around, but I thought that it would be an idea to see what kind of gardens you can have at the foot of a skyscraper. So this is a picture which was taken by my daughter Daphne, who lives in Beijing, but this is Busan. You see the pines, and I mean trees at the bottom. Okay, nothing to write home about. This is Chicago. This is Chicago. This is a garden by Pete Udolph. And you see my daughter Alice and my grandson Akio. So that's a way of planting. I'm sure they are in New York. You have such gardens. They like a Turner painting. Very soft to the eye to quiet the vision. So this is in Paris, à la Défense. The landscape architect was named Sgar, and you see the skyscrapers, all right, but what you don't realize that there's a hill here. From here to here is a big hill, so you're at the top of the hill, and then it plunges like a volcano, and there's a hole in there. And once you go in the volcano, you don't see the skyscraper anymore, because you can see it here, where it's foggy also. But you forget completely that you are in a city. And Sgar was genius to have done that. That's a very, very clever idea of doing it. So that's another way of making building Lavac look like a garden. It's a trompe-l'œil. It's not a greenhouse, it's a trompe-l'œil. She was Le Mec de Breuil, she was a wonderful person. And you imagine that she had to paint herself the thing on the glasses. It took her months to do, but the result is fantastic. No maintenance, just clean the glasses. Now, I wanted to introduce this beautiful painting by Dali, because there is a secret in this painting. Is you would even feel a bit dizzy with vertigo. And I imagine that when you work in a skyscraper in New York, if you look down, you must be some kind of giddy, no? Some kind. So I'm trying to figure out for you what kind of garden I would put at the bottom of the skyscraper, so it will feel less deep. So look at the colors here. You have this orange and then blue. Okay. This makes it look even more deep. Now, if you reverse, if you put blue and then orange underneath, normally it should reduce the sense of hate. So let's try. Well, this is a medieval. It's in the Parc des Moutiers. It's a medieval effect, stained glass effect, I would call it. You see, the orange, which is at the back, is nearly at the same level than this Acer Benicagami in autumn, which shows that if you put the light plants behind the deeper ones, it goes to the first front, it goes flat, makes a stained glass window effect. And if you use the cold yellow behind the red, hot red, also the same thing happens. So you were going to play around a little with these ideas. Here, now it's your turn to work. I mean, I'm going to rest a while. Now, you have three shrubs here. You have a berberis, you have a ligustrum, and you have, I guess, a Prunus pissardi, you know. Now, if you look only at these two, Well, this is a yellow, clear color, and this is cold, over warm and warmer here. So, just as what I told you, the yellow comes in nearly at the same level with the red, so it makes a stained glass effect. Now, if you look at these two, ligustrum and the pisardi, it's the reverse. Suddenly, the space between the yellow and the purple is very large. So it makes your garden look bigger. It creates a perspective. So by playing with colors, I mean, all the artists know that. If you go in all the museum, you look at the painting, you will see how the warm colors and the cold colors are put one another, and if it creates space or on the contrary, if it creates this flat effect. So if you play around with that when you see gardens, and you are going to see it's a lot of fun because it works, and it works because it's in there. Now this is in the Parc des Moutiers, again the same idea. Now you have here a yellow-green. You have a yellow-green here, and it is shiny en plus, even more. It's not matte. This is matte. This is shiny. That helps. That makes also create space. Then you have a yellow there and red here, and naturally, if you put the blue behind, then it enlarge the space, etc. And even little bamboo here plays its role. But this is a very small garden. I don't remember where. This is a Cornus canadensis forest pansy, and I guess a limelight, panicular limelight, and more in the background, in blue background. So in very small space, you can really make the place look much larger than it is. And here you have deep blue hydrangeas here. And even a small, it's in the middle of the road, you know, where a place where you can step if cars are going this way and this way. It's very small. Well, here the gardener had used nicotina here. Ricin. This is Ricin, nicotina, and just these two plants created an incredible space as if it was a big garden. And you see also a combination of gray and white also, it creates space. So when you make flower arrangement also, just two plants you can create quantity of space. You can really breathe. And this is asphodel and Artemisia. Now, this is in Shamrock. We had a big space here. We didn't know what to do with it. So we created, we have plants coming in all the time, 100 plants every year coming in, so you have to find some place where to put them. So we had created first these beds here, then circular bed, then you have beds on the other side and beds here. And then we looked at the bad picture of a crop circle. You know the crop circle? This one happened in 2002 in Stonehenge. So it was 300 meters wide, and we reduced it to 30 meters. Took us 2 months to do. That geometric shape happened in one night, and we think now that it happened in a few seconds, because it's warm and from above, so it's pressed like that. Well, we don't know how and why. We're not going to go into that, but anyhow, we liked the drawing. We copied it and we use it, and you're going to see what it does. Well, this is what it does now, this summer. So you have paniculatas, the small ones, the one that flowers 1 month earlier than the others. The others are in the background here, and they already turn pink. You see? But they are small, so they don't hide the drawing. And this is experimental. These are new hydrangeas hybrids of Macrophyllus, experimental. This beautiful color here is called Côte d'Azur. Beautiful plant. It's compact. It's a series called City Line. They have names of cities. Well, I mean, it's rather nice, colored, and people do like it. So this is another of these early flowering paniculatas. It's a cross of Daruma and Pink Diamond. And you see it turns red quite fast. Already in August, you have this color. So it's a nice combination with other plants. It's not very tall, it's not tall, but...
Is that the one called Wind's Red?
Yeah, Vim's Red. Now this is the paniculata. The way we prune them hard at the bottom, because they need sun, you know. They need sun, these plants. But these city line plants, they need shade. So we've been pruning very hard at the bottom and putting these hydrangeas underneath. So you have the change of color and contrast of color, which is over good. Over here you have polonias. We planted 300 polonias to give shade when you have not enough shade. Same thing on the other side with still Côte d'Azur. You see underneath. We plant on plastic because if you don't do that, when you prune the paniculatas, you have so much seeds, they fall in your shirt, in your eyes, in your ears. You shake, and if you didn't have this plastic, there would be a forest of paniculatas. This is again, this is one of the. Yeah, there are nine paths like that. With these are old plants. This is this is blue decal. This is a plant called Dandenong, coming from Australia. And this is twilight, etc. And we planted a lot of buddleias because the colors do well together. Another alley, this is a German alley with a deep red called Sibylla. Here. Then you have a white, beautiful plant called Weiße Königin, invasive, terribly invasive. We take off 20 layers every year.
Which one?
Weiße Königin. Here, I didn't put it on the paper, I'm sorry. And then you have beautiful plant by Brugger, beautiful color. The German alley. Now, you wonder why we put that picture here? Well, the problem is that nowadays we notice that some people who look too much on their computer and screens of their machine, iPhones and everything, they don't see if it's not framed by something. We have a friend who is a teacher, a professor, Université de Strasbourg. It is unbeatable, can talk for hours on Dürer, on Cranach. I mean, he's wonderful, he's a fabulous man. And I took him to a Parc des Moutiers, and he was asking questions, you know, which were intellectual. I could see he wasn't saying anything. And, well, sometimes it happens. Blind people. So we arrived in Moutier, and we have this mass of rhododendrons, pale pink, for 100 meters long. It's beautiful, 12 meters high. I mean, it's quite a sight. And he turned to me and asked me, is it a reason why these rhododendrons are white? I said, do you see a reason, you? Do you see a reason? And then my grandson, Akio, 5 years old, was running towards these rhododendrons like that. So beautiful like that. And I asked this friend, oh, you have a camera, could you take a picture of my grandson? So he said, yes, I do that. So he goes, and then he goes like that to see my grandson and the rhododendrons. And then he sees the rhododendron. He turns to this, it's fabulous. It had to be framed. Yeah, in 2 dimensions. So that really it makes me think a lot, because I can tell you more stories about that. My friend Véronique Barrois has started a fantastic place near Dieppe called La Ferme Européenne des Enfants, the European Farm of Children, where she has children coming from all over Europe and even the States, speaking all languages, all religion, and sometimes these children do not, when they arrive, they don't see anymore, much more. Even one teacher of sculpture told me I give them a piece of wood, they can draw all right what they want to do, a bird or whatever, but they don't know what happens in 3 dimensions. So they cannot go behind wood to make it 3-dimensional. Because they're so used to look in 2 dimensions, you see? So it's a bit pathetic. It's a bit pathetic. So I will tell you more stories about these children because they tell the truth. You just have to listen. Thank you, Véronique, to have come, especially from Normandy. So you can confirm what I say. Okay. Now, you see, a frame helps in a garden. This is Lyndon Miller's garden with beautiful limelight, paniculata limelight. That create really a vista and dramatic. It's really nice. Now, in 2 dimensions, you see, this is a stained glass window by Braque, who lived in Varangeville many years, who did a lot of paintings, and he did that stained glass window called l'Arbre de Gessé, the Gessé tree. Well, it's beautiful. You see the cliffs here, the sea, the cliffs, and then the Arbre de Gessé. Beautiful, beautiful, bright. It's just right in that church on the cliff, right on the side of it. Beautiful. But it is in 2D. So how to get out of this 2D effect? Well, this is a garden called the Clos du Coudray that creates movement. With the water, it creates movement. So your eye has to go to find the source of that stream. This is Hestercombe, and there is a very special, it's 3-dimensional even though, you see, and you have this water falling here. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, Hestercombe. Now, this is the Lutyens, again. Now, you see, he uses this pergola. You have to bring your eye to the end of the vista. And he made a little trick. The pavement here is wider than here. That's very clever. But you don't realize it because you have the door that hides the change. Now also, Stefan will agree with me that you can bring the landscape here into the garden. That's a Zen idea, no? That's used to be right. So when you're lucky to have a big plane and lots of room, you can enlarge your garden. Now, this is a Pinus graffiti. It's excellent background. And if I was planting a garden at the bottom of a skyscraper in New York, I would use graffiti because from above you would see the blue, and then you would underneath put yellow plants, pale yellow plants. And that, I think it could work. Would you try? So horizontal lines again, this is again this beautiful view on the cliffs of Orangeville, painted by Claude Monet here, maybe you recognize here. Now, botanical garden, because we are in a botanical garden, and these places are absolutely essential and useful to train our eyes to diversity, to biodiversity. So here it's in the Shamrock collection, you have a collection of hydrangea serrata from the mountains. Well, maybe it's less spectacular, but when you come close and look at every of these flowers, I mean, it's just beautiful, just beautiful. These are double ones. There are hundreds of them, and there are more coming in all the time. Now, between the hybrid of Macrophylla and serratas, there's a lot in the wild, a lot of hybrids, natural hybrids, and Corinne calls them Ceratophylla, X Ceratophylla. These are plants highly interesting because they flower all summer. Serratas usually flower only in June, and then they stop. But Ceratophylla, they flower all summer, and they are tall, whereas serratas are small. And there are plenty of them. You have Tokyo Delight, you have Shoujo, a plant which is going to come out soon by Spring Meadow Nurseries. You have Odorico Amacha, you have Nadeshiko Yama, you have a lot of these plants that are excellent. This is just one thing, they need shade. They need shade. In a botanical garden, you have sometimes some incredible plants. This is a Grosse serrata collected on the island of Yakushima. It flowers all summer. Quite different, and this is in the fall, the colors. That's a plant, it's just brought from from China, continental China, not Taiwan, continental China. It's no name yet, just we call it Big A because it's a big B. It's very late, flowers very late, very interesting paniculata. And here you have Cercidiphyllum pendulum, beautiful plant to create vertical effect. This is a new quercifolia with cut leaves, very much cut leaves. It was called cut leaf, now it's called ice crystal. You can find it in the trade. It is said to be white, well it turns very good pink. You know. Then you have combination of plants that really can bring attention, draw attention. You have this very hardy plant, Elaeagnus comitata quicksilver, together with cyanotus. I don't think the cyanotus, unfortunately, wouldn't do in New York, but that plant grows in Canada on the beaches. It should be good. It's the best gray plant ever. Best gray plant ever. This Elaeagnus comitata quicksilver. Unbeatable. It's better than Pyrrhus salicifolia. Well, it grows in Canada. Yes, by the sea. Well, as Ted was saying, maybe you don't win all the time. This combination of Japanese maple and Betula utilis. And that's, I wanted to put that picture because it was in the Parc des Moutiers. This was a Magnolia macrophylla and a Nyssa sylvatica in autumn. Very beautiful. And that's very funny. It's equisetum. It's a field of equisetum moving in the wind. Incredible. Very soft to the eye. So you see a weed sometimes can be really interesting. And that's this is statue in our wood of serratas, bringing peace to visitors. I have a few words to say, which I wrote and had it checked in good English for a change. At this point of our journey together through places and plants, I'm sure the importance of vision appeared central to our way of life at home, at work, in the city, on weekends, in the countryside, in gardens, large or small, on holidays. In our book, La vie des morts, The Life of the Dead, written in Warsaw in the middle of the horrors of the Second World War, Agnès Chabrier said, the quality of life depends on the quality of vision. She was very brave to be able to write that. For some, vision has to do with happiness. Recent research on the functioning of the brain proves this point without any doubt. A good vision keeps you awake to and aware of any beauty that surrounds you, notably in gardens or even more in nature. As we are confronted with beauty, our brain produces oxytocin, I'm sure you know that brings us peace, joy, and love. The crucial problem is now that nowadays both young people and adults are seeing more and more only in two dimensions, looking at all their various screens, computers, smartphone, television, and only within a framed picture. We've seen that together. Their brains are no longer used to seeing further or wider, panoramically, or from the ground up to the sky, except maybe in New York, in big cities like New York, where the skyscrapers call you to look up. We have seen cases of children that have limited vision and need certainly the help of an optometrist. At the Ferme Européenne des Enfants, we've seen cases like that. With comprehension and tender loving care, fortunately, this handicap can be overcome. To bring back a normal state of vision, we have several tools at our disposal. First, we have perspective. Perspective works the same way as a slight vertigo, stimulating our attention. That's why in some gardens you get bored, because there's nothing to draw your attention, and in some gardens you don't stop looking at here and here and here and here, because it's organized. I think of places, big park like Wörlitz, like Merville, which were organized to have vista all the time changing. Perspective working in the same way as a slight vertigo. It keeps you awake. Another second, an extreme sensations like delicious fragrance, softness of touch, exquisite music, or extreme beauty, like a phenomenal sunset, for instance, or a prodigious architecture, that also can break through this limited vision. And then gardens, third, and especially botanical gardens that make one discover the incredible diversity and beauty of nature. As Sir Joseph Banks said in 1770, while traveling in Brazil, I do not cease to marvel at the incredible diversity of nature. Marveling brings enjoyment, which in turn brings natural gratitude. Satisfaction brings peace, and peace allows opening of the mind and awareness of a soft touch of the soul, as Alexander Pope said, to wake the soul with tender strokes of art. This is why gardens represent such a great chance nowadays for New York and for the world. Remember that this so-called opening of the mind is in fact an opening of the heart that allows better communication and empathy with others, and last but not least, spiritual communion with the creation and its author, including you and me. Voilà, finished.